China vows retaliation against countries supporting U.S.-led trade isolation. Beijing has vowed to retaliate if other countries strike trade deals with the United States at the expense of China's interests. In response to news that the Trump administration is pressuring trading partners to isolate China in trade. Now, if you watch this channel, we have covered this. I have been saying this since basically the trade war started. I said that the whole purpose of this trade war was to limit China's economic growth. It's basically the US versus China in an economic war. That's what this has been about since the beginning. And that's why I haven't understood, and no one's been able to explain to me, why piss off everyone else at the same time. That's the part I don't get. Now, when I say this, understand that I am not for this economic warfare, okay? I don't think that these things benefit anybody. However, if you're going to do it, why would you piss off the rest of the world at the same time? Let me give you an example. Here we have Mexico, which this article was written March 9th, 2025, where Bessent went down, he talked to Sheinbaum, and he said, hey, you need to review your situation with China. I'm paraphrasing here. They're using you as a backdoor into America to avoid higher tariffs, right, through the trade agreement that we have with Mexico. You need to review all those tariffs. We want to start isolating them. And if you don't, we're going to keep really high tariffs on you. But if you do, we're going to ease those tariffs. And so it puts Sheinbaum in a very awkward situation because they do a lot of business with China. In fact, BYD had just announced a very large project over in Mexico. But still, America is their #1 trading partner. So Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, she announced after this on Thursday that the country will review tariffs on Chinese imports. Basically, she caved. And her declaration follows Trump's exemption of Mexican products from his 25% tariffs on goods covered under the USMCA trade agreement, which used to be known as NAFTA, but then Trump, as he often does, he came in and he said, I don't like NAFTA, it's terrible. So he tore up NAFTA and then he drafted paper, which was basically NAFTA, exactly the same thing, and he put USMCA on it. We need to review the tariffs we have with China. Sheinbaum stated at a press conference, she highlighted devastating impacts on Mexico's domestic industries. Those devastating impacts would be from the trade war that would happen with the US. So she basically caved. But guess what? You would say, oh, that's a win, right? Except for that it isn't, because then Trump all of a sudden was like, oh, yep, I don't ever keep my word on anything, and I don't give any clarity to anything, and I have no vision. I just operate on a whim. And so Sheinbaum thought she had a agreement, but it wasn't an agreement. And he announced his tariff list, and lo and behold, guess who was on there? Mexico. Okay. So it is like, okay. And it's like, she's probably like, what's going on here? And so now today, this was written, Sheinbaum says there's no deal yet from the Trump call. So they're back to negotiations, right? And this is where I'm saying, like, how far can you push people and piss them off before they turn on you, right? And think about this. If you're in a situation and you're dealing with someone unstable, like Trump and like America's showing right now, and over on the other side, you have someone that's almost as powerful, but they seem stable, who are you going to deal with, right? Maybe you might start considering, hey, I don't know if I can trust this guy, right? Would it surprise you if Sheinbaum said, I don't know that we can trust this guy. I don't know that we want to put our faith into this guy. Because he literally changes his mind on a whim. He says one thing one day, we say okay, and then he changes it completely the next day, and then he forgets about it on the third day. Is that how you run a country? Is that how you plan a business? Is that how you do anything? Accomplish anything in life? No. But what if you have a stable trading partner that shows that they're stable, shows that they're committed? You might start thinking, even though you've had this long-standing relationship, you might be tempted away. Okay? I'm just saying. Back to the article. Beijing has warned of retaliatory measures against countries that reach trade agreements with the United States at the expense of China's interests. So Beijing is coming in and saying, hey, if you're going to do these kind of deals against us just to get out of your tariffs, more than likely, we're either your second largest trading partner, or in many cases, we're your first, but in Western countries, it's probably mostly second. We're going to target you with our tariffs. And so as other nations are dragged into the trade war between the world's two largest economies, in its latest response to steeply increased U.S. tariffs, which are absolutely ridiculous. One day they're 100%, next day they're 125, then they're 145, then they're 200 or whatever they are. It makes no difference. In its latest response to steeply increased U.S. tariffs, Chinese Ministry of Commerce said in a statement that Beijing respects all parties' efforts to resolve their trade disputes with the U.S. through equal consultation. However, China will not accept any U.S.-led trade deals that harms its interests and will respond resolutely and reciprocally with countermeasures to safeguard its rights and interests. So first of all, I still think that other countries, I know in America, we are led by a literal clown show. And I did a video how Trump turns everybody purposely underneath them into a clown. Like Bessent, who was Mr. Wall Street, is now driving, he's riding shotgun in the clown car. I still think Stephen Miller is driving a clown car. Bessent's right next to him. He takes the most serious of people, he turns them into literal clowns. But what about the rest of the world? Can you do that? Especially when you have China on the other side actually looking like adults, right? Is it possible that someone's like, do I want to deal with that clown over there who's, got his nose and the horn and is just all over the place? Or do I want to deal with this stable person when I'm talking about my country? Maybe I'll go to that clown when I need an entertainer for my show, right? I'll go to the Trump clown when I need an entertainer. But I'm going to deal with somebody else when it comes to important stuff. Is that possible that could enter someone's mind? I don't know. In the statement, China added the U.S. tariffs as unilateral bullying in international trade, adding that if international trade regresses to the law of the jungle where the strong prey on the weak, all countries will become victims. I agree with this 100%. Now, mind you, I'm not saying China is completely in the clear. China has done currency manipulation for a long time. But it's to be expected. Why do I say that? Well, look at who's, the kind of regime they have over there. Okay, and you can't say that necessarily hasn't worked to their favor. And plus, when you say they do currency manipulation, remember what America does too, which is basically we threaten the whole world through our dollar, right? Which is probably worse than currency manipulation. Go ahead and ask Russia, go ahead and ask any of these countries that get these economic sanctions on them, and have their money just literally taken from them because they used our SWIFT banking systems, right? So imagine that you have your money in the bank and the federal government just says, no, we're taking that. Why? Well, you just did something we don't like. Okay, so it's not to say that anybody's an innocent party here. I just want to put that out. Last week, the Trump administration was reportedly planning to pressure U.S. trading partners to limit deals with China and ongoing tariff negotiations. Countries with close trade ties to China may face so-called secondary tariffs. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi last week visited major trade partners in Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. On his first overseas trip of the year, the visit signaled China's renewed push to reinforce regional stability and prosperity and its determined support for regional economic integration as global protectionism and unilateralism continue to mount, the state news agency Xinhua reported. Okay? So this is just absolutely crazy. We're caught in the middle of economic warfare. You have companies like, this is ASML. I talk about them a lot when I talk about NVIDIA, right? They make lithography. What is lithography? I'm going to explain it to you really quick. I know a lot of you aren't interested, but maybe some of you are. You have this chip that's cast from silicone, and now they're down to 3 nanometers. And they're not actually down to 3 nanometers. It's just kind of a generational thing. It used to be when they said the nanometers, it was the actual size, but you got to understand how small 3 nanometers is. I think a human hair is like 100 nanometers, and like the size of a hydrogen atom is like 0.1 nanometers. So if you're down at 3, you'd only be 30 times bigger than a hydrogen atom. I think the actual size at a Gates is closer to probably 10 nanometers, but they're using it as a generational name. So this technology right here, imagine that you have these tiny silicone wafers and they're printing onto them billions of transistors, okay? And so lithography is the method that they do this through. And so they basically just take this UV light and they go ahead and they stamp they map the transistor layout onto the chip. And then they go ahead and they move the chip in a certain way and they map the next layer and they map the next layer. And then they just, into those channels, they'll go ahead and they'll fill it with copper. And so that's just really keeping it super high level. How they do this, how they put billions of transistors that are smaller, multiple order of magnitude smaller than a human hair. Okay, billions of them onto these tiny little chips in the devices we use. So this company has been at the forefront of this technology. But because of U.S. trade protectionism, right, the U.S. under Biden and Trump has been saying to ASML, hey, you can't send China your best technology. And then actually what happened, there was an incident where, China had bought $15 billion worth of equipment, I believe, off of ASML. And then the sanctions came in afterwards, and ASML was not allowed to service or update these machines, right? And can you imagine that? Buying $15 billion worth of equipment, and then the manufacturer says, sorry, we can't help you out with your problem you're having with this because the United States won't let us. Right? And this is a Dutch company. This is not a U.S. company. This is a Dutch company. Okay? So this is the kind of economic warfare that's already been going on with China. Right? Now, what China did, what did they do? They started developing their own technology in this space. They've been putting tons of money into it. And they're rapidly catching up. Now, are they as good as ASML? No, they're not at this level yet. But likely they will be. Okay, they absolutely will be. And ASML, their CEO, got tired of this. They're like, you know what? Is this really about national security? Because they saw China developing the technology. They're like, is this really about national security? Or is this just economically motivated for America? Right? The chief executive of Dutch computer chip company supplier ASML said on Wednesday, a U.S.-led campaign to restrict the company's export to customers in China in the name of national security has become more economically motivated over time. Speaking at a city conference in New York City, he expects pushback against U.S.-led restrictions to grow. At the same time, he argues Chinese advances in chip making are slowing down to restrictions that are already in place. Well, he was wrong there. Is absolutely wrong there. I think to make the case that this is about national security is getting harder and harder. Most probably there will be more pressure of restrictions, but I also think there will be more pushback. And I think we have a hope to reach a certain equilibrium because as a business, what we all want is a bit of clarity, a bit of stability. So he's wrong on his prediction. This was last year, September 4th, right? Now we know from Huawei announcements shortly thereafter that they've actually made significant progress. However, think about if you're running this company, your revenue is being limited by another nation's government, which has to be frustrating, right? So you're the CEO of ASML, maybe you're even a founder, and you built this company. It's your company, you built it, right? This was the dream in your head, you built it with your two hands. And now not only is it not your government, just think if it was your own government that came in saying, hey, you can't do this, you got to give us taxes, all this. There's another nation's government coming in and saying this stuff. I mean, that would have to be insanely frustrating. Just absolutely insane. And so now here we have European chip champions, ASML, warns of Trump tariff uncertainty. So now, once again, they're speaking out. They're talking about the ongoing trade war amid disappointing financial results due to Trump's tariff uncertainty. The dynamic is creating a new uncertainty. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into this, but just remember that this is probably Europe's, I would say, their best technology company, right? It leads the world without a doubt in this absolutely critical technology. And the United States is restricting them from going out and servicing their marketplace, which restricts their ability to innovate because they need that money to reinvest, right? To make their product better. It's got to be extremely frustrating. So I wanted to bring up a little video here for you on this insane trade war. This is Scott Bessent. And we're just going to go ahead and put this in theater mode, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this.
And look, that there are a lot of different stores of value over time. Bitcoin's becoming a store of value. Gold has historically been a store of value. I think what's interesting is when I had my fund, I think people might have called me a gold bug.
Because in this trade war, Scott has been saying China has nowhere to park its money but into U.S. Treasuries. He's kind of saying, hey, we're the default dollar, we're the default currency of the world, the default investment. What are they going to do with their funds? They can't just stash it into yuan and renminbi, because then that'll work against their devaluation plan. And he's correct in that it would, but they're not doing that. And he should know better. They're buying gold. Okay. And so I'm going to tell you something real quick here. This is not an investment pitch. I've never really understood gold before, the gold mindset. I just haven't. But now with these economically uncertain times, I am understanding it, because it's like, where do you put your money? Where do you put it when everything is all of a sudden going to shit, right? I mean, do I want to put it into T-bonds? The government, there is rumors the Trump presidency is going to release a 50-year bond. Is that supposed to give me confidence as an investor? That gives me the exact opposite. Think about it. If you went to get a car loan and they offered you a 50-year repayment, would that give you confidence that you're a good buyer? That you're reliable to pay back the money? No, it's the exact opposite. It's complete and total desperation. Okay? And it's happening because we have to sell debt to pay our debt interest. Not even to pay our debt. We have to sell debt to pay the interest on our debt. Okay? Do you understand? I mean, this is insanity. And so Bessent knows. He knows what China, everybody can see this going on. China's central bank gold stash spikes to 2,292 tons, and Beijing is still buying. China's central bank continued to accumulate gold, adding 5 tons to a stash in March, marking its 5th consecutive monthly purchase. On Sunday, the Kobeissi letter, a popular capital market newsletter, posted on X stating that China's central bank has purchased gold for the 5th straight month, adding 5 tons in March and bringing its total gold reserves to a record 2,292 tons. It adds that gold now accounts for 6.5% of the nation's official reserve assets, having purchased a whopping 50 tons of yellow metal in February, more than 10 times what was officially reported. So we don't even know, like 5 tons, that could be low. We could find out later that it was, again, like February, and it was 50 tons. Could you imagine that? That's just absolutely insane. So basically, it's like, they have to use us. They have to park their money into dollars. No, they don't. You know that. You, Mr. Wall Street, know that. But now that you're riding shotgun in the clown car, you pretend like, oh, where else are they going to put their money? They're going to put it in gold, for God's sake. Okay? Like everybody else is in the world. Have you seen the price of gold? And again, I'm not a gold bug, but I'm starting to understand it. Okay, look at this. Gold's performance over last year. Look at the S&P. Look at gold, up $1,000. Okay, this is the worst chart ever. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. So I hate to say it. Maybe I should make a better chart. I shouldn't say that, because then if I commit myself to doing something like this, this will be yet another project that I don't finish. I'll start it off. I'll get it looking halfway decent, and I'll be like, I'm bored of this. And I'll move on to another project. But yeah, gold is, I got to admit, listen, again, not investment advice, but now I'm finally starting to see the light on gold, right? I'm starting to see the light a little bit. But it's funny because you go to all these channels that people talking about it, and these people who talk about it, they're goofy. I mean, they're not even like, I guess there are a lot of libertarians, I would say, like, kind of like, don't trust the government at all. Don't even like Trump. don't like anybody, and just want to live off the land and have my gold. You'll see a lot of those types on there. It's interesting stuff. But anyways, that's what I got for you today. If you like this channel, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. It doesn't cost you anything to do, and it really helps me out. We're trying to get to 900 subscribers. You have a great day. Thank you.